Hey, and welcome to let me just mess around a little. Sorry I don't have the intro worked out yet. Um don't mind me. Just doing a little things I didn't think of until way too late. You know, that sort of thing. Just a minor thing. Why am I not seeing text? Okay. There we go. And also I need to have this lower. There we go. Okay. Hi, howdy, hello, people of this universe. Why I don't see. Let me go ahead and test out chat. I switched to OBS from Streamlabs OBS. Testing out the chat. I can't really test it without going live. It's like the most frustrating thing ever. And still nothing shows up. I'll shush you. I'll shush you, Dwagon. Okay. I'm gonna put chat as one of the things I need to figure out how to fix. So, today is the day I continue the dreaded saga. Today, I will talk more about this awful video. So, first, let's go over notes. So, in this video, I hear pings. Okay. Nothing important. I don't think. Okay. Anyways. So, so far, this video has essentially called or described the difference between mental illness and mental distress versus madness, which was my first clue that there's a possibility of ableism, but I wanted to give it a chance. Because sometimes, because I misheard something, and I thought there was more of a chance of it not being the worst. So, the distinction this video creator made between mental illness / distress and the madness is you perceive mental illness and distress with empathy because it's more often seen in real life, which is, I mean, it's essentially a categorization of this neurodivergence is not seen as often in real life, so therefore I don't have to perceive empathy. Usually that involves a level of dehumanizing. So I get the impression that this quote-unquote madness relates to this person just being unable to they're unable to see certain types of neurodivergent people as real people. So yeah, so the examples that were used, these are my notes, so I apologize if it takes a little bit. This is essentially a recap, plus it's been a couple weeks for me, and maybe you if you watched the previous one. So examples: mad scientist, which, based on the description given, I wrote note neurodivergent, over-focused on scientific results over the cost. Mad hermit, neurodivergent, focused on nature over the human focus on, or the typical human focus on humanity. Mad king, neurodivergent, portrayed as unpredictable and unreliable due to the particular form of neurodivergence. Axe murderer, often neurodivergent, therefore killer. And then, yeah, the statement madness doesn't evoke sympathy or empathy. It scares us. I mean, it didn't scare me, but i.e., if you're too unknown, you are a danger to society. That is the logical conclusion based on the types of quote-unquote madness. So this person brings up the deep-seated fear of quote-unquote becoming mad. This essentially acknowledges the fear of becoming disabled, which is all throughout society, and this person doesn't recognize that the fear is essentially the fear is manufactured from how cruel society is to people who are disabled. It's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I see certain types of neurodivergence as causing someone to be counted as less than human. Therefore, I am afraid, because everyone can become disabled, I am afraid I will end up with this sort of neurodivergence in the future because sorry, I just looked at autocorrect and it keeps autocorrecting neurodivergence as nerdy virgins, or at least it did it once. Anyways, so what kind of person expresses herself this way? I'm not quite sure what that was about. I mean, obviously it was about Jinx, but it was just saying that no natural human, I mean, that quote essentially says no natural human would act this way, therefore Jinx is unnatural and doesn't need to be counted as human. So this person starts breaking down rules. So you have rule number 1 for this quote-unquote madness: externalizing conflict. It's essentially saying if you hallucinate, you're mad and therefore don't deserve sympathy/empathy. And I love the quote, madness is externalized in appearance. And I'm just like, i.e., ugly laws make sense to me. Essentially, it's it's essentially, a lot of this seems to be this person feels uncomfortable by certain types of neurodivergence and disability, and therefore justifies it, feels the need to justify it as correct instead of changing any fundamental aspect of his. I think this person is he. I think Schnee is he, but like, yeah. And it says, I have a note. This is wrong. Artistic expression equals madness. Oh, that probably relates to the, that may have been, there may have been criticism of the, so Jinx, defaces, certain parts of the building which she steals from, with graffiti, which isn't like, that's more, that's just a type of expression, essentially. Anyways, rule number 2. Oneself belongs to the real world. Oneself belongs to the quote-unquote mad world. Sorry. Mad world. I've got that song stuck in my head now. Anyways, rule number 3, quote-unquote mad world breeds conflict. Has this includes inner conflict, which basically relates to any mental distress / illness by this person's own definitions. So I don't know how. Well, like I said, I don't think this person is making the connections, and this person is desperately trying to justify their incorrect, or they're not incorrect, but their opinion, which is very conflicting. Rule number 4, world of paradoxes. Much like this video, which does have a number of paradoxes. Does that mean Schnee is mad by the definition in this video? Find out later. Anyways, it says extreme action that only makes sense in the quote-unquote mad world, which appears to be this person's description of Jinx blowing up that one building, which it makes sense even outside of this alleged mad world. So Jinx destroying the council because she thought that's what Silco wanted. Based off of what Silco has taught her, that is what Silco wanted, and it was both a memorial to Silco and a lashing out against the people who killed her parents. Like, don't forget that enforcers killed her parents. Like, yeah, that's gonna breed some animosity if the people who tell the enforcers what to do, it makes it easy to lash out at the enforcers, the people who tell the enforcers what to do, which is the council. The council tells the enforcers what to do. The council tells told the enforcers to suppress the rebellion, thereby causing the death of Jinx's parents. But anyways, I believe rule 4 was the last part. I could, based on the notes.
represents. So she has two. She has one on her desk and she nails one to the wall. We have both. We're living in the contradiction. And her burn it all down moment, this destructive act, is representing this bizarre but powerful mix of doomsday aesthetic with the red sky and the beautiful triumphant shooting star aesthetic with the path of the missile. The madness isn't represented as total trauma or total destruction or total hatred. It's celebrating trauma. It's beautiful doom. It's double bunny. Okay, so now where does this all take us? What do we do with it? So the climax of these arcs, when they're tragic, is absolute commitment to the mad world, a cop.
Oh god. Rule number 5. Tragedy is commitment to the quote-unquote mad world. Mad world. I'm starting to remember why I felt the need to make this video, and that's because I need the audience to hold my hand, essentially.
Accomplished through some extreme act that only makes sense in that world. Burn it all down.
Oh, okay. Maybe I did get past 5.
And it keeps just building and building, more and more corrupt, stronger and stronger externalizations, more and more transformative, so that this climax action isn't just a decision, it's a damn breaking moment. And that's partially what ends up justifying it on our side, on the audience side, because these actions are typically so extreme that even if there's a reason for it generally, it is hard to believe a character is making a conscious decision to do something so...
Yeah, that's just you not relating to or understanding what genuine oppression is. At least that's the impression I get.
Insane. But if there's years of pressure building up, years of repressed emotional energy pushing the character to act over and over, and the character refusing each time or never quite letting themselves go 100%, then we have that justifying the action as well. Of course that much pent-up energy needs to find...
It's not that simple. I know this is a shock. Sorry about the green screen element not being the best today. I'm still working on this new system, so. But yeah, the Denethor thing, in my mind, was terribly set up.
Release in something that extreme. Okay, now to shift gears a bit, let's talk about Hitler. The next element of madness is expressed so perfectly in this book. I'll show it here.
Oh god. Oh god. It got worse. It got worse. How? How did this get worse? How did it get worse? Why is this doing this to me? How is this worse? How did it get worse? Rule number 6. Hitler. Dear God. I know, save me from this, save me. It got worse. It's because it's essentially saying all evil, it's essentially, this person's combining all evil into a type of neurodivergence, and this is so awful. This is
So this author makes documentaries, so listen to this. This happened in 1990. When writing and producing a film about Dr. Joseph Goebbels, I talked to Wilfred von Oven, who as his personal attaché had worked closely with the infamous Nazi propaganda.
So, this is one of those things where, yeah, the Nazis didn't die. They kept their attitude. They kept their ideology. Which is why I'm a fan of the song that's like When the Last Nazi Dies or something.
Propaganda minister. After the formal interview over a cup of tea, I asked this intelligent and charming man, if you could sum up your experience of the Third Reich in just one word, what would it be? As Herr von Oven thought for a moment and considered the question, I guess his response would make reference to the horrible crimes of the regime, crimes he freely admitted had occurred, and of the damage that Nazism had wreaked upon the world. Well, he finally said, if I was asked to sum up my experience of the Third Reich in one word, that word would be paradise.
So evil is neurodivergence? It seems to be that it's saying, oh god, this is so much worse than I thought. This I did not know is going to get so much worse. This is not the this you can catastrophize. Thank you, Christy. Yes, this is so. This video is essentially saying equating neurodivergence, certain types of neurodivergence, with Nazi Germany. Now, when I named this video, I was referring to how bad the first part was. I didn't realize, I didn't look ahead. So I'm like, 4 evils? Yes, apparently, but like, I didn't look ahead. I didn't know it was genuinely going to go oh god.
Tend to view human horrors like Nazism from how we know it to be, in our perspective. But from the perpetrator's perspective, it can take on an entirely different character. We know this movement was like the incarnation of evil itself, but that doesn't mean that what was
one moment. I feel uncomfortable. I want to spit in this dude's coffee. I feel uncomfortable leaving a freeze frame on the awful imagery. So, like, the problem with Nazi Germany, and there were a lot of problems with it, is that it was not viewed by evil until years later. There were plenty of Nazis in America who wanted America to join with Nazi Germany. So dude has no idea how context or social forces work. Yeah, apparently, because so like you had the what happens a lot of the time with these movements is you have a key, you have the people who genuinely my stepfather as well, as was his father. Yeah, like you have these you have the people who genuinely are passionate about everything in the Nazi movement or any sort of fascist, alt-right, far-right movement. And then you have the majority of people, which are the people who are willing to accept it, who are fine with it, who think killing these people who I'm uncomfortable with, who I can dehumanize and feel no empathy for, killing these people is fine. And the thing is, this video creator, while saying the Nazi movement was obviously evil, has the personality of someone who would go along with what was happening in the Nazi movement. And not to say that this person, like I said, not to say that this person would necessarily agree with all the views of that particular type of leadership, but they would definitely go along with it because the first people were that were killed or put into concentration camps before they became death camps. Before the concentration camps became death camps, you had political disagreeers, people who disagree with the person politically, but also you had marginalized groups like the Romani people and Jews. And the sorts of people that this person describes as evil, some of the people who were killed by the Nazis, and this person just... I don't know how this person... Because... the banality of evil. I didn't do anything. Yes, that's the problem, Stella. Yeah. I mean, and it's very... The people who ran the Nazi Party were not in any way that I'm aware of neurodivergent. They might have been, but they might not have been. And there are plenty of people... Obviously, this person references a Nazi who is spoken of. Plenty of Nazis. It's not like all Nazis were condemned for their actions. Some Nazis were, and some Nazis went over to other places and helped build the government. It's sort of like Captain America's the Winter Soldier. Basically, Hydra is synonymous with the Nazis, and it's not that different. What Hydra does in that movie is not that different from what the Nazis did in real life. So, yeah. I have to continue this. Why did I make myself do this? Okay, I'm on. Let's see if I can get past this part. I at least need to get past this part.
Driving it were these cartoonishly evil villains stroking cats, talking about creating a world of pain and death and evil. No, what drives this kind of madness can be hope. It can be paradise. Crazy as it sounds, it can be a desire to make the world a better place. And yeah, completely corrupted, completely insane, but at its root, it's often a blinding positivity at the heart of madness.
I remember standing there for...
This film is this video is breaking me. It's breaking me. And yes, I know the auto closed captions that I have are not always correct. They're just correct some of the time, and a decent enough amount of the time that it's worth it. But this film is I say film. This essay is just every movement out there has hope at its core. Of course, every movement involves people who think they're doing the right thing because their ethics are different from yours. A lot of people want to make the world a better place. That's going to be at the core of a lot of movements. Now, whether or not a facade of that is the case with the leaders is a different story, but like yeah, in terms of the messaging, every time they message it, people aren't going to latch on to any movement if they think it's not going to make the world better. And once again, in this case, these are the people who are killing the people that this video creator has mentioned not having empathy or sympathy for. That's who the Nazis killed, for the most part. I don't know how this person would feel about the Romani people. I don't think this video creator would. I assume this video creator just focuses on the ruthless murder of millions of Jews by the Nazis, which, yes, that was bad, but they had an ideology that involved killing a lot more than just that. And they ultimately, yeah, it's they were euthanizing people before the concentration camps became death camps. I was
basking in the radiance of the funeral. But now that just seems like a dream. A strange, wonderful, frightening dream.
It was not a dream. It was a nightmare. Of our own making, and it's time to wake up from it. The look in Hitler's eyes was not radiance. It was madness.
So back to fiction.
Oh, that's why they're using that. Oh, dear God. Okay. That got past the awful. No. So much no. I wasn't able to. Trouble with notes, because, dear God, this person flew too far from reality. Rule number 6 is blinding possibility. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You would, Christy, you would be killed. I would be killed. So many people would be killed who fit into this person's bizarre categorization. So
aspect of madness, the positivity, even if it's not something we typically choose to highlight in real life madness, that is a very resonant factor in depicting madness in stories. These moments for us may be horrifying, but for the characters, letting that dam finally burst and giving into the alternate world, it's triumph, it's destiny, it's bliss. Depicting that dissonance, that disconnect between the positivity within the doer and the actual objective evil or destructiveness through the perspective of the onlookers, us included, that disconnect is so powerful. It really
no. It's no. That it. I would be the first two, and that's how T4 worked. Yeah. It's so. This person is so. So, like, once again, what Jinx made an emotional decision. That is not what any of, like, if we're talking about the Nazi Party was very dedicated and controlled. Non-compliance isn't evil. Yes, non-compliance is not evil. And also, like, the only reason this person is essentially saying that what Jinx did was evil was because this person is essentially siding with the council. But the problem is, the point of Arcane is the council is not. It is filled with mostly bad people, and they've been running it for years and years and years. And yeah, they were voting for peace, but they were voting way too late. They should have made that decision 5 or 10 years ago. And because they ignored the problems, yeah, they festered and became big, but that's not... Militaristic action is not inherently... does not inherently relate at all to neurodivergence, and nor is military action inherently evil. Based on the information Jinx had, she didn't know that what the council was going to do, and she doesn't know the consequences. And yeah, and there's also always the possibility that she was just shooting for the moon and it just happened to hit the council through a matter of bad luck. But I assume that she's potentially aiming for it, because it's the Silco, we will show them all. But yeah, the disconnect is essentially the first step towards dehumanization. Giving in wasn't bliss. Masking is exhausting. Yeah, and Jinx was not happy. Jinx was miserable. Jinx was like, I'm in pain, so I'm going to express that pain. That's all Jinx was doing. Jinx didn't even know if there were people in the council that day. They don't always have council meetings. She could have just been essentially trying to blow up an empty room. Like, this isn't... Jinx did not have enough information to determine whether or not the amount of damage it would cause. Control is not a protective factor. Yes.
Transforms the impact from shocking to horrifying. Okay, so now we have our
Show blinding positivity shows Gollum, but ignores the fact that Jinx is crying. Jinx is literally crying when she shoots that rocket. Jinx was not happy. Jinx wasn't pretending to be happy. Jinx was actively and very obviously sad and just wanted to just destroy shit. She didn't know that people were going to even die from this. There wasn't a guarantee that people would even die from the rocket which Jinx shot out. She's clearly not trying to make anything better. She's like legit just emotionally lashing out because she feels like she's lost everything. It's like a very understandable thing, and the fact that this person has decided to create this entire alternate reality to justify the fact that it weirds them out, because disgust and fear are like the main emotions which are involved with discrimination, and this person is not processing that they are expressing those emotions. This person, to quote the title of the end episode of Arcane, this person is the monster that they created. And they just don't realize it. Dear God, Rule 7. Positivity and build up. Oh God.
For positivity, we also have our buildup of conflict. That dam-breaking moment we talked about earlier usually has one more major ingredient: grief. And this is in the same...
Okay. Okay, so this person's supposed to be blindingly positive, in grief, detached from reality, in a world of paradoxes, conflicted, and externally. This is a very complicated way to describe an event when it's simpler to say things went really bad. Jinx grew up poor and hated, and expects to be hated all the time. A lot of these things are natural reactions to the circumstances, and Jinx's circumstances are just atypical. This isn't...
same vein of what we talked about earlier with justifying that moment, making us buy that the character would actually do something that extreme, that out of reality. Grief is another way of
build up or grief. Like, what is this person trying to...
aiding that justification. The character faces an unexpected death of a loved one, or an unexpected defeat or failure. Everything until now the dam could hold. And we've gotten a sense of what this dam is capable of holding. So whatever...
the dam breaks and the person becomes too weird for this creator. I don't even... Yeah, people...
Whatever breaks it has to be worse. It has to be a qualitatively harder blow than anything we've seen up until now. With Jinx, it was seeing history repeat itself, killing her family again. It was the loss of her most cherished bond, which was also one of her final remaining bonds. So we need the character's world shattered. That's a prompt for action. The character needs to fix their world, or to get back at the world for what it did.
Character... What? Character needs to fix the world or get back at fate? Those are two very different things. And like people in the right circumstance anyone can make an emotional decision which is not the best decision. In fact, the law recognizes this as a factor when it comes to crimes. Like, you can't... How can you not sympathize with that?
Did to me. Either way, we demand an action whose impact will be as loud, as bad as what impacted me negatively.
No. I mean, the thing is, people can do a lot of different things. And like I said, this wasn't just an action against the people who were oppressing her. And the people in the Undercity were being oppressed by Piltover. This was an action specifically against Piltover. This wasn't just randomly destroying the world. This was an attack on the people who have spent most of their lives, or who, like, Jinx's life to some degree had been crushed by the perpetual horrible attitudes of Piltover to keep Piltover nice. The Undercity got completely screwed over perpetually. It's not an attack on the world. It's an attack specifically on Piltover. Silco said he would have never given Jinx up. And Silco wanted a war against Piltover. Silco taught Jinx how to make a weapon to fight against Piltover. I mean, Silco didn't teach Jinx how to make the weapon. Jinx figured out how to make the weapon on her own, but Silco wanted her to create a weapon. This was a consistent thing. It's he was doing it because that's what Silco would have wanted. Like I said, a lot of this was a memorial to Silco. Like it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't just like an oversimplified, oh, this is bad, so I'm gonna, I had a bad event, so I'm gonna destroy everything. No, this was her making a slightly more impulsive decision than usual because of trauma, because traumatic events tend to make anyone make a more impulsive decision. I mean, yeah.
And that's where the bliss fits in, the triumph, the positivity. The character is now desperate on a whole nother level to escape from grief, or to revive a cherished bond, or to balance the scales of how fate treated them, or of justice. The lure of the positivity within their madness has never been stronger. That positivity is what will balance the scales. And while we're on the topic of the grief,
That wasn't positivity, that was anger. This person has created a whole complicated mess to try to wow.
grief trigger for the dam breaking moment. Similar to this is the trigger of the madness arc as a whole, like going
Toxic positivity is the thing, yeah. But like I just toxic gratitude is also a thing. Yeah, I mean those are things, but like once again, I totally understand why Jinx did the things that she did, and I can't guarantee that were I not in the same situation as Jinx, that I would not do the same thing. And
going back much earlier in the character's life or in their arc, and this usually does need its own trigger. Not every one goes mad, so we feel like there should be some event we can point to which sets the character down this path. Oh
my god. This trauma and difference from me equals mad equals don't have to feel sympathy or empathy for this human being. I just victim blaming is also a thing.
often is an event of the same nature, some world-shattering trauma, death, loss, defeat, but it can also be the introduction of some dark influence. A dark person, a dark object, a dark substance. It can be an environment like the prison in Midnight Express. It can be an idea, either independent or an interpretation of an event, often related to identity.
She jinxes every job.
With Denethor, it seems like the general trigger was Boromir's death, and then the final
like, I like characters who are neurodivergent, who I can sympathize and empathize with because they're not stereotypical puppets. This person seems to say that if he can treat people, neurodivergent people, as a stereotypical puppet, therefore good is essentially what this person is trying to say. I hate it.
Final trigger was Faramir's death, in quotes. The Star Wars prequels actually turn it on its head, making love the inception point of Anakin's Madness arc. Very interesting. They don't do a very good job, but it's a very interesting idea. Okay, next main ingredient. This one is a little hard to articulate. I'm going to borrow a friend's definition.
Yeah, some of the reasons why this is hard to articulate is because it is so much justification for an emotional reaction to a character which, like, I think I said this in the last video, but Jinx is one of the characters I sympathize with and empathize with the most of any character in Arcane. So this is essentially saying that either I should not be I am not someone. See, this could be made into a personal attack in some ways, because this is very much based on the descriptions suggests that I might be mad. The possibility I might be mad because I sympathize and empathize with Jinx. But I'm sure this person has a different excuse because I haven't lashed out and caused, you know, some sort of major event of some sort. I don't know. I mean,
Here, I'm calling this spiritual deterioration.
what? Oh God. This is so many. Usually, if you can, there are a lot simpler ways to break down stuff, and I tend to be the type of person who's like, generally values the simpler explanation unless the simpler explanation doesn't genuinely apply to the actual circumstance. So, like, gravity is a simple. The simple explanation is, you know, stuff travels towards the center of Earth, you know, moving 9.8 meters per second or whatever, and various objects pull at things. Now, there's a lot more theory to gravity because it's not that simple when certain aspects of the real world start to apply, and Newtonian gravity no longer makes sense. And this seems to be essentially like someone trying to create a bunch of extra rules so that in their mind Newtonian gravity can make sense, but even that does not explain the differences for why Newtonian gravity doesn't apply. Does that make sense? Am I rambling too much? I don't know.
And this is my friend Abby's definition of spirituality, which doesn't really have to do with spirits or God or religion. My friend Abby is a chaplain at a children's hospital. She helps a lot of parents and children facing devastating illnesses, and her definition of spirituality is connection.
Wait. Oh no. Connection. In 5 levels. So, but like, okay.
There's 5 levels of connection she focuses on with the people she works with. Your connection to your community, your connection.
So, connection to your community. Now this actually potentially applies to very basic ways of trying to make sure people regain connection after traumatic events or maintain connection after traumatic events, which is genuinely has potential help. Unfortunately, you can't connect to your community if your community hates you for existing, which is why this person's entire thesis is actually it's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because this person is creating a world in which people will be further isolated from the world, therefore causing people to lose connection with, because they don't have a community, or at the very least not one nearby that can protect them.
Connection to your family, your connection.
Now, connection to your family. I should point out that found family matters more than any sort of biological family. Like, this is not... Once again, this person got it from grief counseling, essentially, and this is not the worst thing, but I wouldn't call it spirituality. Or at least so far, this is not the worst thing.
Connection to yourself, connection.
This sounds like a lot of this sounds like a way to break down self-care.
With your body and connection with something.
So medical ableism, there we are. Oh wait, did I miss something in terms of this? Because this does not seem like, these 5 things do not seem like necessarily bad things. Having a community, having a found family, taking care of yourself on an emotional level, taking time for yourself, that sort of thing. Taking care of your body, and connection to something greater. Now, you could use that to describe some sort of spiritual deific thing, or you could describe it as connection to a purpose. People oftentimes find the need to create a purpose so that they are moving towards something. At least that's my interpretation. These 5 things are not bad, but how is this? Because this is spiritual deterioration, so...
Greater, whether it's a cause, a value, a mission, God, whatever it is. And I think these provide an interesting model that encompasses the kind of deterioration we see with madness. We feel like relationships...
Oh God. That's not... Not the specific things, except independence and health as spiritual good. Yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't consider connection to yourself as an independence thing, but definitely I could see connection to your body as... It's just one of those things where taking care of yourself does help some things, and what that means is different for different people. Like, it doesn't all have to mean the same thing. Although the way it's applied could be something like that, which would be bad because everyone's different. Oh, lack of appearance of health as fallen or evil. Yeah, that would be bad. Jinx keeps pretty healthy. This counterpoint, some people like being alone and shouldn't be viewed as evil for not wanting to have relationships in the general sense of relationships. It's not. Yeah.
People around us, our societies, our families. That's what keeps us grounded, so we don't find ourselves slipping into these worlds that don't make sense to anyone.
Nah, not to dude. Madness is. Oh, not to this dude. That madness is an unhealth. Oh, yeah.
Around us. And that's it also goes both ways, that this descent into madness also does end up wreaking havoc on relationships. And this breeds a characteristic.
Okay, but like. I have a counterpoint to this. Two people. Counterpoint. Relationships involve more than one person. It's not just one person destroying relationships. This attitude of considering certain neurodivergence as evil also destroys relationships. Like, it's not, you can't just use one thing to talk about how relationships are destroyed.
Almost universally associated with mad people. A paranoia. This is what these broken relationships.
Okay, but like not alternate versions. Lack of communication of Same's experience to him is unhealthy.
Universally associated with mad people. A paranoia. This is what these broken relationships become. I'm not connected to any of these.
That's not how that works. Usually people genuinely lying to you breeds paranoia. Like, if people are always lying to you, why should you trust people?
These people, they are against me.
If you're not with me, then you're my enemy.
Oh, shudder. Again, I love Lord of the Rings' depiction of this from both ends of the spectrum. Gollum obviously cast out from his own society and then actually alone for 500 whatever years, and even when he forms relationships, his paranoia fights to break them. But also,
No, I mean,
Denethor isolated in his own way at the top of society. I don't think this was in the books, but in the movies they express it beautifully in the visuals. This giant empty throne room. And of course his Man of Stark matches up with his isolation from his family. And Saruman similar with his Ivory Tower or Ebony Tower isolation. So this type of deterioration doesn't have to be this icky, dirty outcast.
okay, but like, against me, I love Laura Jane. But like, Radagast is like the most wholesome character in Lord of the Rings. And Gandalf is alone most of the time. These characters... Wizards are in the Lord of the Rings series are essentially angels. Saruman, Sauron, Radagast the Brown, Gandalf the Grey. These are people who these are individuals who are essentially angels and are alone 90% of the time. Radagast doesn't have a community. Radagast cares more about nature. And he's a chill dude. Radagast is the best. He's basically like Santa Claus. Also, well, Santa Claus sometimes, a lot of the time, well, not all the time. Sometimes, whatever, Santa Claus is a bit more complicated. But there are plenty of people who are do not fit this at all. And Radagast in this particular case, because that is the same universe, the same author.
Thing, it can take a variety of forms. And then we have isolation from the self, equally important here, which in a lot of ways means that it feels like we don't know the person anymore. But it's not just a change or personality shift. It's like the person we remember is deteriorating. We see the
That's person changed, therefore deterioration of self? What the fuck? How do you... No, people change. Echo also changed. But this person wouldn't argue that Echo had a deterioration from self. If I hadn't seen her sister in years, if I hadn't seen Echo in years, people change. Community is not universal. If your body mind don't conform, it's harder to find community. Yes. And also, it's... None of this is that simple, and you can't just rely on one person to do all the emotional... You can self-reflect and genuinely, beneficially help yourself. It is possible to do things which are positive without a community.
reprieve from the moments of madness, the resurfacing moments. Sometimes we see it depicted almost as if the character had an out-of-body experience and then has like an abrupt return to the self. And I think this encompasses the disconnection from self, from
What? That's not isolation from self. It is. Jinx did not worry about the potential to deal with powder type stuff until Vi comes back. Once Jinx knows that Vi is back, she definitely cares more about. I mean, Silco's attitude is different from. I think Silco's attitude is different from Jinx's attitude. It's not that Jinx didn't try things. There's just the two of me alone at last together. Yeah, that's from Shock Treatment. Okay, I need to see Shock Treatment. Anyways, yeah, it's just
identity, but also disconnection from something greater. Disconnection from your values, your mission, your life's devotion.
people's devotion changes. Yeah, this is the whole reasoning behind homophobia, transphobia, and most forms of ableism. Deciding who someone truly is instead of accepting that the person changed. Got to go waving consensual snugs. Oh, yeah. Take care, Christy. Yeah, no, this is an incredibly problematic attitudes. Like, you are not the arbiter of someone else's identity. Jinx always liked explosions. Jinx tried to throw a nail bomb at someone and have it explode. It's just, she accepted that and pursued it further. It was a part of her personality which was not expressed much, but was always there.
But the disconnection from body, that's a really interesting category here. And the word that might fit better for this concept here is humanity.
Oh God. Here we go. (101) How to dehumanize people to justify you being okay with their death. Disconnect. I knew it, Black. Yeah, so this person is like, saw disconnection from your body and was like, that doesn't quite work. How about disconnection from humanity? I don't consider this person human anymore. Yeah, that's incredibly unhealthy behavior. Like, the one thing I learned from Silence of the Lambs is that dehumanization is an important first step to being okay with killing or allowing someone to die. This is right there. This essentially this restricted view of what it means to be human has been the justification for the Holocaust, for most types of genocide. This person said Hitler was obviously bad, but then turns around and spouts the sort of stuff that allowed Hitler's decisions to be considered okay by the general populace of Nazi Germany. You can't you can't just say something is obviously evil. You have to try to understand how it is humanity came to that decision. You can't just be like, this is evil and everyone who followed it was crazy. That's not a good way to determine anything. Most people who followed who follow any fascist idea is neurodivergence, the typical person. And like I said, this person's attitude is rife for being exploited by fascists and people who want to justify genocide. Because the moment you stop considering people human, the moment you stop empathizing and sympathizing with them. And this person doesn't realize that to some degree they are doing it to themselves. Like I said, they are the monster they created.
Disconnection from humanity or deterioration of your own humanity. I talked about this a bit in the Gollum short that I did. The character becomes less human. Their human...
Yeah, there is nothing... If you're talking about physical appearance, well, for one thing, these aren't humans, these are hobbits. And Gollum is a hobbit-like creature. And Gollum ends up transformed by the ring, but the ultimate point of Lord of the Rings, which is that essentially sympathy and letting people live and not just like outright killing them might be what saves all of humanity, and it is. The sympathy of Frodo is the reason the ring gets destroyed. I think I went over this in the previous video, so I'm just going to continue on.
Characteristics diminish, speech becomes limited, they start acting like animals, eating like animals, or they might become more corpse-like. And that's another way of expressing this: mindlessness, vacant affects, meaningless behavior.
I don't think I can express how much I hate this. This is very open description of why neurodivergent people get shot and killed by police. Because they're just different, so it makes you uncomfortable. And so you consider them less human, so you can fucking kill them or don't mind watching other people kill them. No, that's not mindlessness. Power of empathy and emotional labor. Yeah, it's just you not being aware of you not understanding someone's expression does not make them mindless. Non-verbal autistic people are not mindless. It's just an inability to express in the way that this person is used to. Yeah, dude lacks empathy and emotional labor. I don't think this person necessarily lacks empathy. This person is just conditioned by all the awful aspects of society to be okay with the things that were used as justification for any genocidal act, whether it be the Holocaust or various other things. So long as this person is essentially saying, if you're too different, you're not worth living. And it's I don't think it's I don't think this person necessarily inherently lacks empathy. I think this person has, through the faults of society, been conditioned to lack empathy for individuals who are too different from the norm.
Behavior, emptiness. With Jinx, we obviously have her becoming more and more socially isolated. We have her burn it down moment coming after all of her relationships are no more. But my favorite depiction of this, of the isolation of identity in particular, is the stuff they do with a mirror. She can't see her reflection. She tries to connect to her.
He lacks empathy for people and beings he doesn't see himself in? Possibly.
Herself by looking in the mirror, but that connection is shattered. And I think Arcane deals a lot with disconnection from your body, with everything they do relating to monsters and Shimmer, changing your nature,
Yeah, but that is a typical form of ableism. Is okay.
changing your very substance. With Jinx, we do see this little part of her arc that has to do with her body, and with how her madness affects how she values her body, and ultimately
harming behavior where someone harms themselves does not mean madness or whatever this person's dehumanizing ass attitude is. I hate it. I hate this. Yeah. Jinx has no self-worth.
impacts what her body is. We see this lead to this transformation physically for her in the subtleties of how she looks and how she even moves. So all these elements I used to see as kind of separate, but I think this umbrella term, this way of thinking about it as spiritual deterioration, fits really well to encompass.
Yeah, but you altered part of that to justify dehumanizing a genuinely interesting character. Who has very clear, well, a lack of self-motivation. Like, you can argue that a similar thing is Jace. Jace has no clear motives. Jace very much does not know what he wants to do. I think Jace figured out how to create magic. And then after that, he was like... I don't think Jace ever knew what to do and was sort of following Silco's lead, essentially. Or the Council's lead, or Heimerdinger's lead.
All of these qualities. Okay, final ingredient here is agency, and there's also a feature of...
I don't know. Why?
fictional madness. Doesn't seem like a real thing with real madness. But the madness arc doesn't feel complete until the characters themselves get to that crucial moment of choice and choose madness. And I think this also...
I just... Sorry, the green screen's not the best today. But, like, dear God... Now this person is essentially victim blaming. This person is saying that it's their fault that they went crazy. And sorry if I am using ableist terms partially because of this person's awful video, and I'm probably basically this person saying people choose to be neurodivergent in the way that this person doesn't like, and therefore it's their fault. You can't say someone chooses something and not say that it's their fault. This is inherently victim blaming. Frodo succumbed to the power of Sauron. That wasn't him choosing anything. All of Frodo's choices were to fight against it. And he lost the will to keep fighting against it. He ran out of mental energy. He ran out of emotional labor fighting against the ring. That's what happened with Frodo. That's not... You can have tragic events without blaming someone for the tragic event. I hate this. I hate this.
also has to do more with our relationship to the character via the other characters in the story. Madness arcs are often about trying to bring the person back from the brink of madness.
This is so eclectic. I hate this. I hate this so much.
There's faith that they can see reason, they can be themselves again, and as long as we hold on to that hope that it's something we can save them from, we cannot get to a resolution. So that hope has to die, and it dies with the character showing that they want this.
This is so unhealthy. This is such an unhealthy behavior that's perpetuated by society. It's causing people to fear accepting themselves because then they might be too different, then they might be evil, like this person is saying. This person says, you can't save people who are too different. And this completely goes against what the stories this person is referencing are about. Vi is stuck in the past. Vi does not accept Jinx as Jinx. Silco did accept Jinx as Jinx.
When they have the opportunity and the freedom to choose otherwise, to choose reality, they make the wrong choice.
No one chooses trauma or their body. Yeah, I mean, like, and it's essentially saying accepting. This is essentially saying accepting yourself is choosing madness over reality. This is so unhealthy.
And of course with Jinx we get that quiet, incredible moment of her sitting in the Jinx chair. No voices telling her to, no demons, nothing to push her either way, and she herself makes that choice to be Jinx. And that's when we finally lose all hope. Okay.
First off, I don't think Vi loses hope. I don't think Vi loses hope from this. Okay, feel free to pause here to review. Okay. To review time. Externalization. People externalize trauma all the time. In fact, this person, to some degree, is externalizing the lack of empathy he feels towards certain types of neurodivergence with characters. Mad identity. Essentially an identity that this person does not understand. Conflicting worlds. This person doesn't understand them, therefore they must be conflicting, even though everyone... part of the point of Arcane is that everyone is somewhat conflicting in terms of their attitude. Same with paradoxes. Paradoxes, everyone's somewhat paradoxical in Arcane, not just Jinx. Vi is paradoxical. Vi doesn't accept Jinx for being Jinx, but still tries to save her. Silco is paradoxical. He genuinely cares about Jinx and tries to give her the most love he can for who she is. and but he's also an awful person who is so terrified of losing Jinx that he tries to kill Vi and make sure Jinx never meets Vi, because that means he might lose her. Build up. Every story has build up. Every story has build up to an action. You see this in every sort of decision that's made in Arcane has build up. Jinx's action had build up. It had understandable build up. Positivity. Jinx has no positivity anywhere in the show. Positivity doesn't actually apply to Jinx. It more so applies to the positivity thing was a weird thing. It's not something that really makes sense for a lot of things. Most people want to create this person admits that most people want to create a good world, but if it's so it's not really the positivity that's the issue. I mean, toxic positivity is a thing, but trying to make the world better is not a bad thing. Not that this person is saying trying to make the world better is a bad thing, but people doing stuff in an unethical way is a bad thing. But that has nothing to do with positivity. That has to do with people's ethics conflicting. For instance, negative utilitarianism is the main setup for my ethics and ethical point of view, but fascists tend to have a different ethical point of view about trying to create some sort of ideal version of what it means to be human. Grief trigger, yes, trauma. Trauma generally is a relation to the reasons why a lot of characters do what they do, because trauma affects everyone. Trauma is the reason why Jace constantly searches for magic. The trauma of almost losing his mother and then ultimately being saved by magic is the reason why Jace does it. Grief triggers are not surprising to anyone. Jace's decision to kick Heimerdinger from the council was a grief triggered moment. It was an action compounded by the grief of not wanting to lose his friend. And Heimerdinger was actively asking Jace to stop research that would allow his friend to live. So, like, yeah, Inception point. I don't remember Inception. So wait, I look back at my notes. This drama is different from me. Equals mad, equals don't have sympathy or empathy for them. Yeah, no, it's just, it's more trauma action. Spiritual deterioration is the key point where this person starts to dehumanize anyone who's neurodivergent and too different from him, and therefore is justified as because he knows who they truly are. He knows how their humanity should be. He doesn't consider them human anymore, which essentially is dehumanization, which means he considers them animals who deserve to die. Or sorry, who it's fine if they die. Since I have no reason to think this person would actively form or support a fascist movement, but this person's attitude suggests that they would look the other way or not care, not be too bothered if certain people were put into camps, and what happens to them is none of his business. Moment of agency is just victim blaming. So this is all awful. But the video is only halfway done.
Okay, so that's what I got for Madness. So let's go back to Game of Thrones and see what we're dealing with here. So it's interesting.
Oh. Okay.
Like I mentioned before, is that we do see them trying to do some of these. And there were problems that came out extremely half-baked. So let's start with that. Let's expose some of these doughy, mushy, unbaked globs in Dany's half-baked Madness arc.
Oh god. I forgot this was a complaint about season 8 of Game of Thrones. Which, by the way, a couple friends of mine like it, but like...
And half-bakedness is its own type of problem, which is what happened with most of these. Lack of development, lack of time to develop. But really what we'll see is a lack of a strong foundation upon which to develop. But before we get to that, there's one here that was just wrong. Not half-baked, just a bad choice. One of the most obvious problems I've seen other people point out here, the grief trigger. They tried to do this, Missandei dies, and that's supposedly what pushes Dany over the edge. It's the straw that breaks the camel's back. And I think within that very idiom, which undoubtedly was thrown about the writer's room to describe this very moment, we can see why this failed. And all camel farmers watching, please correct me on this if I'm wrong, but what usually breaks camels' backs is not individual pieces of straw. Usually camel backs are broken by, like, I don't know, really bad falls down dunes, or like cars, or sandworms, I don't know. The whole reason the straw that breaks the camel's back is an idiom, the whole reason it sounds interesting is because despite it being possible, the alternative seems much more realistic to us. Straws don't actually break camels' backs. It's the irony, it's how unlikely it would seem. And
No. Dear God, no. It's because people can only take so much. I can only take so much of this. But, like, people can only take so much. That's what the straw that breaks the camel's back means. It means there's a limit to what people can do, and if you push over that limit, you start to have difficulty coping with the after effects of pushing yourself up over the limit. That's what the straw that breaks the camel's back is. This was one too many events. This is one too many bad events. Or if everything goes wrong at some point, there's a last straw. It's not an ironic thing. It's not a thing about irony. It's I thought I overthought things.
to put that in the terms we discussed earlier, the way the dam breaking moment works is that we get a buildup of challenges and burdens, and through those we get a sense of what this dam can hold, which denotes an expectation of what it will take to break it. And whatever form that takes, it has to be world-shattering, it has to be so bad, so big, that the equally big response it prompts is understandable to us, meaning that climax action. So it's going to be so bad.
Okay, but if it's understandable... don't you think it's strange if that you don't understand how someone can do that? This is very conflicting. This whole video is filled with paradoxes.
Bad that only burning it all down is going to balance those scales. And
but that's not about burning it all down. That's about, I mean, all built over maybe, but honestly, screw Piltover.
Game of Thrones, they had that. We saw 2 dragons die, and that would have been a great opportunity. And forget how this would fit into the mess of the Beyond the Wall plot. But imagine Dany goes to warn King's Landing, and that's when we see the Scorpions for the first time, and in horrifying succession, they kill Viserion and kill Rhaegal, and it's the first time we see dragons die. And we also want to balance the scales of this injustice. So Dany lays waste to the Scorpions and can't stop herself from balancing the scales by destroying King's Landing as well, killing the children of Westeros in retribution for killing her children. That would have been better. But what did we get? We got dead dragons, and then we're like, oh, they killed her dragons, and she hasn't gone mad yet. That's a pretty strong dam. And then... Missandei is what sets her over the edge. Terrible sequencing. And half of it was clearly from failing to juggle these two major plot lines and their climaxes, but the other half was just running out of characters. Which, as I mentioned in the Stranger Things death video, is exactly what happens when your show's gimmick is killing off characters. They walk right into that one. Okay, so that grief trigger, that's one thing we're going to need to fix. While we're on the topic of the dam-breaking moment, we don't get a build-up either, and this one was a time issue. They had moments like this.
Do not become what you have always struggled to defeat.
We can tell she's suppressing emotion, but we didn't get anywhere near a boiling point. So we're going to have to figure out what that looks like also. Positivity, they also tried to do. She knows what's good and no one can tell her otherwise.
Sure, I'm broken. I know I'm using ableist terms. I probably shouldn't. Especially given this video.
She wants to build a society of peace. She's going to free the world from tyrants. And there's her paradox as well. She wants to free them from tyrants, but she's the tyrant. Oh no, it makes no sense. Why can't she see?
But let's discuss the contradiction.
Spiritual deterioration. We do have some of this, and by some I mean basically just this.
She hasn't seen anyone since we returned. Hasn't left her chambers.
Her relationships do get rocky, but it doesn't feel like isolation, it just feels like normal conflict. Same kind we've seen all series long. We see some deterioration of humanity, and I'm being
Fuck your deterioration of humanity. What the fuck narrow view of humanity do you have? You fucking... Sorry. I'm not salty. What? Me? Salty?
being like 1000% generous here.
Hasn't accepted any food.
She looks a little worn too, but yeah, nothing besides that. The general trigger, the inception point of the whole madness arc, they think they gave this to us, but I don't think they did. It seems like they're trying to say the root cause of the madness is blood, which is a big theme in the show, so that helps a bit. We get a history of mad Targaryens, and then this.
They say every time a Targaryen is born, the gods toss a coin, and the well holds its breath.
So they're telling me that the root cause of the madness arc is randomness? That's not a cause, it's a lack of a cause. And I get what they're going for here. It's suspenseful if we don't know what tips the scales, but it's not satisfying to have a vital part of an arc have no cause. Just like it wouldn't be satisfying to say, here's Aragorn, whether he becomes king is a flip of the coin, not his character, not his struggles, just randomness, statistics. And lastly, they do give us a moment of agency, a moment of choice, and like I said before, they do it just the same way Arcane does it. All the plot reasons to act fall away because we have peace. And it's actually slightly stronger here, because Dany knows for sure that this means peace, and doesn't show any signs of not trusting it, whereas Jinx doesn't know if there's peace or not. She's still overcome with her paranoia.
Sorry. That's a bit too fast. I need to...
all away because we have peace. And it's actually slightly stronger here because Dany knows for sure that this means peace and doesn't show any signs of not trusting it, whereas Jinx doesn't know if there's peace or not. She's still overcome with her paranoia. So the bells ring.
Nobody knows there's peace. Nobody knows. Nobody at that table knew that peace was coming. Jinx didn't know. Silco didn't know. Caitlyn didn't know, and Vi didn't know. No. Nobody knew peace was coming. That's not about paranoia. Nobody had any reason to think peace was coming. Silco said he would never give up Jinx, which means he assumes he would have to do that first before they even talked about the possibility of peace. Before they even, like, before any action came about. Jace jumped the gun.
Ring. Game of Thrones also uses quiet and stillness to emphasize the lack of other influences on Dany's decision, just like with Jinx. And Dany chooses madness, just like Jinx does. Very similar. So this is the part where I'd say
nobody chooses stuff like that. It's not about choice. It's... people react to bad circumstances in different ways, and
they did this part fine. It just has no foundation to stand on, so it fails because of everything they failed to do beforehand. If you imagine them doing everything right and then the scene is the exact same, easy to imagine it being a great scene. So that's everything they tried to do and it didn't.
based on these numbers, this is essentially saying, oh, Danny wasn't mad enough, so therefore not a good madness arc. I don't know why chat isn't working.
Work. So we have half-baked versions of these rules, and then the parts of what we talked about that they didn't even touch, we have these. Externalized conflicts, second identity, and conflicting realities, and those two really are the most important. They are the foundation to build the entire arc on. Danny kind of started to act not like herself by last episode especially, but not like herself didn't mean a second identity. This is not...
This is essentially... I didn't consider her strange enough for me to dehumanize. Therefore, because I still felt sympathy and empathy, it was a bad story arc.
Smeagol reverting to Gollum. It was not Powder reverting to Jinx. It wasn't even Denethor LARPing being a heathen king of old. It was just Danny being out of character. We badly needed a second identity of some kind, but they didn't give us one. When she talked about the...
You don't know. That's not how... That's not... That is just... I hate this so much.
The world she wanted to build, it wasn't a world we were really familiar with. It should have been part of her externalized conflicts. We should have been building a world where this action made perfect sense in its own twisted, paradoxical way, but in a way where we really...
Jinx's actions made sense in a not paradoxical or strange way. Jinx essentially, you could make an argument that Jinx had a moment of clarity and made that choice.
really could relate to the piece of it, the triumph of it. Having those two worlds, having Danny be tortured by it constantly as she tries to work through all these plot burdens. Sometimes she's moving away from reality, sometimes she's moving towards it. That's what we needed and what we didn't get. What they tried to do was that she wanted to be loved, but she was feared, but that's not an identity. And the thing is, we had identity she should have been conflicted over. We should have seen the clear deterioration underway of her becoming just another mad Targaryen, and then also feel her longing as Danny to become a good queen. She should have been tortured by the question of whether she was going to be one of the mad Targaryens or one of the sane ones. That creates something that can build up, something that can break a dam.
I hate this person.
Without that, we don't have much that we can build up. She just wants to be loved because I guess everyone wants to be loved. And she wants to be a queen because that's the name of the show. And everything that happens, the deaths of the war, it doesn't build on any of that. These events don't push her to want to be loved more, to want to be queen more. No, it just doesn't relate to the madness arc at all. Okay, so time for the fic.
Oh, God. No, we're... I hate this. Okay, I'm gonna end it here. I don't technically have my ending music, but I just have the one music. I mean, I suppose I could fix that, but hold on, let me watch me use the power of OBS. You know what? I'm gonna do. I kind of like that filter I added. Is this one? There we go. And then da 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 da. Don't mind me, I'm just being weird, as usual. Okay. I'll get the text fixed eventually. The ending text stuff. I'm just going to leave it at that, and I hope you had a wonderful day. We will continue the final part of this next week, and then this will be over. And then I won't have to deal with ableism again. That's how that works, right? Well, let me add. I don't know. I can't think of a good filter. Whatever. Have a good one. Bye, everybody.